All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm doing these stupid intros every time. I can't stop myself from just saying, yes, I'm on the internet. I'm not interviewing people in person, even though everyone who listens to this show knows this by now, and no one's going anywhere. It's a pandemic. But, this is convenient. I can talk to people via Zoom, via the internet. So that's what I'm doing again today. And this is someone new to the show who I kind of just heard your music really sort of randomly. You sent me a link, I guess it was a week or so ago, and it was really cool. So I have lots of questions because I'm not entirely sure how to define what it is that you do. So I'm hoping that we can start this off. If you want to just, first of all, introduce yourself and then give a bit of background about what it is you're doing musically.
I don't even think you know my name yet. Well, I guess you do because it's on the Zoom thing.
It's on the screen. That's right. Yeah.
I guess. Yeah. So my name is Adam. So I'm kind of like that. The way that I bill Cowbo Morsche is like that. It's a collective. Okay. So I'm kind of like the head of the collective, and I do all the producing, the vast majority of the writing, and I'll have a lot of people who are more talented than me, better musicians than me, come in and help out. If there's a guitar solo I can't do or a vocal thing that I want or have a particular voice in mind for, I'll get that person to do it. I see no need to mar any artistic statement by my own artistic shortcomings. So it's all done right here. For those of you who are just listening to the podcast, I'll describe what you're seeing. Here we have a very nice microphone, and over here we have another very nice piece of gear. So that's a main summary.
Sure. And then as far as like the style of what you're doing, I think that's probably incredibly difficult to define with something like this because, there's obviously hip hop elements. There's like kind of crazy psychedelic elements. There's experimental stuff happening. It just seems like there's a lot of different things that are dumped into this project. Do you have a way of like shorthand to define what it is you do?
I mean, I try to make the music that I haven't heard yet. I try to make something that I don't see out there and that I would like to be out there. I mean, I wouldn't try to put it in a genre. I hate when people say, don't put me in a box, put me in as many boxes as you can find. But I would find it easier to liken myself to other artists such as like Mr. Bungle or Ween.
Okay.
Or a little bit of Frank Zappa.
Okay. I can see that. I can see all of those actually. That makes sense in terms of it's kind of out there, but and it's got like even in some cases it's got pop elements even, and then mixed with just kind of weird, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's evident to me at least that music that lasts and survives and stands the test of time is music that is both able to be easily accessible while also pushes a lot of boundaries. And I tend to be obviously more in the boundary pushing things, but
totally. Well, and I think I said this to you when you first sent me the stuff that I'm always, because I'm old and stuck in my ways, I'm always nervous whenever I see something that appears to be on the surface some kind of hip hop thing made by young people, because I realize that it's not for me. I'm almost 40. Like I'm not the audience for that stuff. But I was pleasantly surprised. And again, not to shit on new hip hop, because I love hip hop, and it's changed. And one of the things I don't like about a lot of that newer stuff is that it seems very like almost minimalist to the extreme. And that's what
a good word for that is lazy. Yeah.
Well, maybe, right. And then your stuff though, I mean, again, it's not hip hop. There's a lot more going on there, but it's almost like the opposite of that. And it's maximalist, in the sense that there's so much going on and there's so many different parts to each song, and it's so layered and dense. And so, I mean, I know you said you've collaborated with other people on this, but where does the idea for this kind of stuff come from? Like, how does it start off with these songs? Because there's so much happening.
I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, I think probably the main thing is that I do all of my mixing, all of my recording, all of my writing all at once. So everything that I write, like the way that you hear it is basically the way that it was conceived initially, right? So if I'm writing like that, by the time I've finished, say, one verse or something, I've already heard it so many times because I've mixed it, I've added all these layers into it. I'm so sick of it. I want to hear something else already. So that's why, I mean, it's a little bit ADD, because it's always changing, because I'm by that point in my creative process sick of having heard this last thing. So I want something new. I want something that's fresh to my ears. So that doesn't always translate very well to an initial listener, because it's too much. They become overwhelmed. And that's a shortcoming, I would say, of mine creatively. But what it does do, I think, very well is gratify repeat listeners, because there's a lot that you can go back and listen to again and discover new things and have all kinds of different elements of intrigue to have. And I mean, again, myself being a major fan of things like Mr. Bungle, or like these are very dense music, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because once you have kind of absorbed all of the elements, and it's almost kind of second nature once you've listened to this enough. I mean, I don't know how many of my fans end up actually listening to it that much, but once you do finally get there, you start to be able to focus less on the individual elements, and they matter less than the effect that the sound has on you as a whole.
Okay.
And I think that given the new age of computers and music, the texture has become like a very prominent element of what makes good music. And
sure, yeah.
I like to think that I try to appease that element.
Well, some of those, I mean, again, some of the artists that you've referenced too, I mean, I guess a big thing with, I mean, Frank Zappa's a good example in the sense that a lot of his songs are almost more suites than songs. Like there's so many different like movements in the song. It goes beyond just what you need to be played on the radio, right? I mean, he had that stuff too. But, and so how does, I mean, this is maybe a weird question, but how does this music that you're making now, because it obviously rewards close listening and it requires more time than, you know, a 2-minute pop single, how do you get people to hear it? Because we're in an era now where everything is so short attention span and people are clicking and listening for like 30 seconds and they move on to the next thing. Like, how do you grab someone with something that's dense and something that's, you know, long songs and stuff too? Like,
that's a good question. I don't know.
I don't know either. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I've been doing my best a lot more recently. I mean, you're part of this effort of mine to kind of expand on social media and make people more aware. I mean, it's a cliche at this point to say that because of the internet, people have a shorter attention span. I think that that's not necessarily always true, because people are able to have an unlimited access to content. They may pay more mind to some things than they would if, I don't know. It's just a hopeful thought of mine. But yeah, no, I've been trying to just expose it to as many people as possible, because it's like you said, as long as there's weird music out there, there are people who will be looking for it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I feel like if I find enough of those people, then maybe I'll be doing okay. But
yeah, well, they're out there somewhere, right?
Also, yeah, I hope I'm out there. Yeah, but I mean, the other thing is that I am definitely, I mean, with the songs that I sent you and this upcoming project that I'm doing with Postwar, it's definitely more pop focused. They're pretty self-contained songs. Like there's no, well, there are a couple songs that have like pretty drastic changes, but like even then it's like 1 unit and 1 unit of a song, you know, it's all very, it's one idea and it's expanded upon for the song. And rapping, the reason that I gravitate towards rapping in my music is because it's like, it's a very easy thing to latch onto. It's still a pretty new genre, so there's still a lot of things to be said, I think, within it. And having a rap like can go over almost any instrumental, like, and automatically is something that on a first listen you can latch onto. You can kind of understand what the tone of the song is. You can understand what the artistic intention is, and all this other stuff can be going on behind it, and you don't really have to pay attention to it at first, because you can sit on the rap, which is very fascinating, I think.
Well, and I guess some people might not go past the
I
rap.
don't have to work. That maybe, but then just make sure the rap is good, and then
right. Sorry, what were you going to say before I interrupted there? It's
I
got a bit of a delay on the
Oh, I think I was also saying that it's very convenient for me to not have to be worried about melodies or coherent chord structures, because then I can just go off the wall, and it doesn't matter because they're rapping anyway. But yeah, no, that's a good point. And it's been surprising, because I've been showing this album that we've been working on to a lot of people, and to me, it's very much a Cowbo Morsche album that has post-war on it. I think that we both contributed equally to the aesthetic blah 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 of it, but people will listen to it and be like, wow, Colin really killed it, or post-war is really, you know. And it's just odd to me, because lyrics are usually the last thing that I tend to listen to in a song. I mean, now with this project, I'm forced to consider it a lot more than I usually would, and I'm very pleased with the results. But yeah, I don't think it's a fault of any listener to only listen to the rap, as long as what the instrumental is doing supports or artistically contradicts what the artist or what the rapper is trying to say in his rap. Yeah.
Does working in kind of a more contained way, is that hard for you? Like, are you tempted to just kind of go way out with something like that, and you have to rein it in?
Not so much. I mean, I've been working pretty close with him on this album in particular, and just the way that the way that he writes the raps in the moment, like it. There's a reason that verse chorus is tried and true. I mean, it does work given and with rap, especially when I'm catering more to a rap style, it just tends to fit better. And I mean, the thing about the album that you heard is that not many people are even going to make it into the part where it changes and becomes really cool, and then changes again and becomes even cool. You know, it doesn't, like, I want to be upfront with my ideas. I want people to be able to understand what it is that I'm trying to do immediately, and then decide more accurately, I guess, if it is what they want to do. And I don't feel like it's been a kneecap to my creative integrity, I suppose. I don't see it as like, well, because again, it's one of those things where music that is successful and lasts long is music that is able to both appease pop sensibilities while also push boundaries. You know, it's like
Sure,
you have to
absolutely.
work within the box while being outside of it. You know, it's a challenge. I mean, writing new music is always a challenge, but I don't think it's been like in many ways it's easier because I don't know, because some of those songs on Signapity were months and months of writing and going back over and over. And like so many of those songs had alternate sections or alternate directions that they would take. And then I have to revisit it and be like, no, I don't want that. That's too much, or that's not enough, or it's too different, you know? So it took a lot of revising, and this is just easier, I think, at the end of the day.
What is your background in music? Like, how long have you been doing this? Because I saw that you have a few other albums, you know, under this project prior to this one, prior to the one that I heard.
Well, Cowbo Morsche, yeah. Well, I went to Miles Mac, and that's kind of where my music career started. I don't know how many people talk about their high school, I guess, in there.
Probably not many, but yeah. It's all good. It's all
Fair
good.
enough. Well, the music program there was firm in my musical upbringing.
Okay.
But at that point, I had another band called Free Hat. We did a number of gigs. Everybody who was in Free Hat is now a regular contributing member. But at that time, it was very stressful to write that music, and we were all kind of bummed out. So me and this other guy who is no longer with Cowbo Morsche due to personal and creative differences, It's amicable, but he and I started this group basically as a way to taunt the drummer from Free Hat. Many songs on our very early albums, some of them could get me canceled probably, and they're very I should probably revisit them, but they're mostly just about how Luke can't get a boner and Luke can't do this and that. It's very just blasphemous towards Luke. But eventually we started to actually put in a little bit of effort, and then we started to, because everything else that I had been doing musically up to that point was very live. It was, we're going to do a band, we're going to do a practice, we're going to do this and that. But it's nice to be able to work with unlimited restrictions that a computer has to offer me, because as soon as I think of it, it can happen. You know, that's what I think that the major advantage of a computer is, and that's why I like to work with music this way so much. I mean, translating it live is going to be one heck of an ordeal. Yeah,
that was kind of my next question. Actually, I was like, have you tried to do this live at all, or is it strictly
a few
recorded?
Of the simpler songs, yes, but coming out of COVID and knowing that Colin or Postwar has a much larger fan base than we do, we're going to be trying and a lot of these songs again are simpler and therefore easier to play live. So we figure we have enough people who are more than willing to jump on a live project for this. So we're going to be trying some things. It'll be interesting, but yeah.
Well, one of the things that you asked me before we did this was whether I had any suggestions about other artists locally who are doing anything similar. And that's kind of, have you found sort of a place where you fit within the local music scene? Because there's so many little sub scenes everywhere, and you know, again, with the trying to put a genre on yourself, right? There's so many different groupings of bands and artists in Winnipeg, and I don't know where you fit. Like, just listening, I'm not sure where you would fit in.
Me neither. And I mean, that's both a good thing and a bad thing.
It is, yeah.
No, I mean, I've done my fair bit of, I mean, there's a lot of hardcore stuff going around. Like, I mean, your favorite album of that last year, Vagina Witchcraft, right?
Yeah, great album.
I listened to some of it. I liked it quite a bit. Yeah. But I tend not to favor the screamo as much, but I can appreciate it. But I don't know, like that seems to be where most of the experimental stuff is happening, is in the really
heavier,
grimy, the heavier stuff. And I don't think that that's a bad thing, but I think that excludes me a lot of the time.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been looking, but I've also been in a pretty insular grouping for most of my time. Like I'll be introduced to a rapper who I like a lot, and then he'll appear. Like we have another rapper who's on Signapity quite a lot. I don't know if you recognized a repeating character there.
Yeah, I remember voice. Yeah.
And so usually I'll find somebody and I'll like them a lot, and then I'll have them on a number of tracks. And I mean, largely the biggest issue that we have as far as meeting other like-minded artists is that we've never tried to play it live, you know?
Right.
We've not had public exposure as much as we ought to have had, I would say. But yeah, I can't wait to find somebody who is making this kind of music as well.
Well, I don't know if necessarily you have anyone who's making this kind of music, but I think there are a lot of people who are doing similarly interesting experimental things, right? I think there's a lot of people who are probably similarly underground as you, in the sense that they're just doing weird shit at home and when this pandemic eventually ends, maybe they have enough material to play a show, and maybe there'll be a bunch of weird stuff coming up because everyone's been sort of stuck in this strange situation right now. That I think that we're going to get some interesting projects when things finally clear up.
Yeah, I hope so. I
yeah,
can't wait
too,
to hear
yeah.
them.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
at this point, you have a much better finger on the pulse as far as what's going on in the Winnipeg underground than I do. So
Yeah.
I'll be looking to your page, I suppose, a lot. But yeah, otherwise, I would really like to meet some other musicians. Yeah, I suppose not exactly like us, but who are pushing boundaries in a kind of a way that are not being pushed as much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love that.
How did you get into this kind of stuff? Like, you mentioned Mr. Bungle a couple times. Some of those projects, Ween, Zappa. Like, how did you? I mean, what first turned you on to that stuff?
Exposure through friends, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, they would be out. I mean, I didn't even get into music until I was like 15 or 16. I didn't see the utility in it.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I thought art in general was kind of like a plague but
that's a very strange position to have. But anyway, keep going.
Well, it's not a plague so much as just completely useless. Like, why?
Really?
I was kind of, I didn't have any interest in the arts whatsoever. I mean, my parents made me take piano lessons until I was like, pretty far into it. And I hated it. I did not want to do it at all. I despised it. And of all bands that got me to start being into music, it was AC/DC. Okay. Bizarre to me. I cannot stand AC/DC anymore. But yeah. So then from there, it kind of spiraled. I have some friends who introduced me to a lot of stuff. I mean, Ween and Mr. Bungle being among them.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I love Radiohead too. And I like it. It's pretty broad what I like. But no, as far as why I make the music that I make, again, I like to make the music that I haven't heard, and also the music that I wish was already out there. I mean,
yeah.
To me, the point of music for me ultimately is escapism. I can appreciate when artists are more political or more making statements and stuff, and that's great. But for me, the best music has provided me with a deep sense of escape. Not that I have a problem with where I'm at, but the music that can put me in a place that I would otherwise not be able to go is the music to me that is the most compelling. And when songs are changing, it demands that I go with it a lot of the time, if it's well done. And
sure.
So that kind of progressive, more psychedelic kind of way of doing things, it lends itself to a greater deal of escapism. And that's probably a lot of why I get into that. And I like new funky sounds, of course. Yeah.
Well, obviously this doesn't really necessarily apply the same way because you're not playing live at the moment, but what does, how much of the stuff that you do, especially with these longer form songs, where there's a lot of changes, a lot of different things happening, maybe going into more cosmic psychedelic kind of territory, how pre-written is all of it? I mean, is it very, very meticulously kind of set up, or is there a lot of room with your collaborators to kind of, I don't know if jam is the right word, but to just kind of develop things on the fly? Like, how much control do you have, I guess, over the overall project?
100% control. I mean, I rarely at this point do I sit down with a guitar and pluck out some chords. Sometimes I'll do it with piano because I find piano I can just do more at once. Not that I have an issue with the guitar playing, but I don't know. I mean, it mostly happens on my computer as I'm doing it. Like, to me, the sound, I mean, I kind of talked about this earlier, the sound of the music is almost superior to what the actual music is. Like, it doesn't matter how many times you play a C. It's if you play a C in such a way that it's an enveloping sound, that at that point it becomes interesting, because every chord progression has been done. Everything's been done already. It's the way that you present these notes at this point.
The context matters.
Well, of course. And lyricism, I suppose, is one of the ways that you can still say new things. But so when I'm writing a song, I'm building a sound, I'm building a mood, if you will. That's corny, but I'll say it. And so when I'm doing a song at for example, you know the opener from the album that you listened to?
Yep.
You know how kind of the second half transitions into a nice melody ballad kind of thing. I actually didn't write that. This female singer who was singing there wrote that section. And because at that point in the song, everything had been so neurotic and, festering and just kind of ugly sounding. And it wasn't pleasant on the ears, to say the least. And at that point, I felt like, we need to have something that's nice to contrast the mood here, because the most effective thing after hearing all these traumatizing and ugly sounds would be to have something beautiful, because at that point, given the context of the song, it would be more powerful than were it to just be as a standalone thing, right?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, and I kind of lean on that a little bit too much, the ugly, and then it's beautiful, and then it's ugly. Ooh, the contrast. But yeah, so in that case, it was kind of like, hey, I want something beautiful, and I want something that she's going to be able to sing over really well. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to write something that would apply that well as what she came up with. And I think she absolutely killed it. That's a beautiful part of the song, and I take little credit for it. So, but yeah, so as far as control over, like it just depends on what needs to be done in the moment, I think, given the development of the song. I mean, most of the music that I do is at 3 a.m. with like a pound of coffee and just, yeah. So yeah, it depends.
That's cool. Well, I definitely get the appeal of the kind of going from chaos into suddenly shifting into something that is more structured and more like you said, it's prettier, right? It has more melody to it. I mean, one of the things that, not that you're playing this genre at all, but one of the things I like about free jazz, I listen to a lot of avant-garde jazz, and the thing I like about it is basically that is you can be listening for 10, 15 minutes straight, and it just sounds like raw noise, and it's just, you know, everything's discordant and clashing with each other, and then suddenly, just out of nowhere, everyone starts playing the same notes and playing together, and then it descends into chaos again. And like, I always appreciate that kind of the ability to suddenly switch on a dime and go from loud or aggressive or anything like, and then just to something nice. And then because it kind of makes you know that like this is on purpose rather than this is just someone bashing around. Like you get a feeling that like this is planned. This song is meant to do this rather than just someone you know, hammering away on a
and that's one of the joys of completely improvised music like free jazz like that. Is that it's entire, like there's no planning, it's entirely based on how the musicians feel in that moment, and often how they feel in that moment tends to be the most enveloping feeling that one could have, because as you're playing the music, you're more engaged in that music
for sure
than pretty much you can ever be actually just listening to it. So they know,
and with each other too, you're so keyed into each other.
Exactly. So in that moment, they know better than anybody else how it should feel at any given time, and if they play their cards right, then they can create completely magical sections without having any planning beforehand, because it's all based on how they feel with each other and with the piece, and how
that's planning in the moment. Planning it's planned in the sense that they are kind of probably look at each other and then suddenly just shift, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's another element that I feel sometimes is that's one of the joys of being in a band and writing a song together as a band, because you're there, you're trying it out with each other. I mean, I kind of have a little bit of that going on here too, but it's more meticulous, I would say. But yeah, that's the joy to have that feeling when you all accidentally do the right thing and you didn't plan it and it's just there, and then the ability to repeat it though, I think is critical.
That's the hard part. For sure. So you know, obviously the pandemic's happening, obviously no one's playing shows or anything at this point. What is your sort of goal once if things you know, reach some sense of normality? Are you hoping to be able to take this to a live show, or are you going to just focus on recording first? Like what's your plan if things lift?
Well, I mean, I want to do a tour this summer if it's at all feasible. I mean, there are a few issues with this. Number one being that the album that we have with Post War is just about finished. But so I have no concerns about the music being finished. It's just that there's a lot of people that would have to come on a tour like that.
Right.
I don't know the first thing about planning a tour. I have a guy in my back pocket, Jaime Chinchilla. I don't know. But
that name sounds very familiar.
Yeah, he's pretty involved. He just recently started up his own like music help producer kind of business. It's very cool. I did it for a month and then I ran out of money, but no, he's very good, and hopefully he helps us out with a tour as long as Post War is available to do it and everybody's not too busy working. Finally can. But I would love to go on tour with it, and there are a few songs that I'm already strongly convicted will be great live, like Cremation Therapy. I guess if we get the okay to play it, we can play it here. It's one of those songs that with the drums, they're pounding and he comes on, and I think it'll be great live. I'll invite you to the show. I'll let you know.
Right on. I think that like this also, I mean, I'm not sure what you think about this, but this kind of stuff lends itself to having a really cool live show, I think too.
I hope so.
Because I mean, you know, there's a lot of music that you can listen to the recording and you just imagine a bunch of guys standing there without moving whatsoever, just really bored playing guitar. This doesn't give me that kind of vibe. This gives me the vibe there'd be something happening kind of surrounding the performance itself.
Well, yeah, I love performing. I love getting weird on stage.
Yeah.
I've been known to heckle my audience members in like, is he joking? Is he not? Kind of Andy Kaufman way. But I I think that what's really, well, it can be both a good thing and a bad thing about our music is that it demands your attention all the time. It needs you need to be paying attention or else you won't like it. It's not background noise. It's not hangout music. It's like you have to. So in a live show, I think that could do it a great service because you're there to see the music. And often I'll find myself bored at live shows because I'll hear the first minute or two of a song and be like, all right, got it.
Move on.
And so with this kind of music, I think it could do very well live. And as long as the moments that click are not too short-lived, you know,
right?
Because before they were called Viet Cong, now they're called the Preoccupations.
Right.
I love that, and I saw them live, and they'll do the same riff over and over again for like 10 minutes, and it's great. I'm thoroughly engaged the entire time. Why that is beyond me, but I think that a lot of these moments that they have, if they were to cut them at all shorter, it would feel like I wouldn't have enough time to be fully. I feel like people at live shows both have more and less patience, if that makes sense, for that kind of thing. Because if it's something where it's like really heavy and maybe that is why there's such a loud noise scene going on in Winnipeg at the moment. But yeah, I don't know. I hope it'll work out. And again, as long as those moments that they click aren't too short-lived.
Yeah.
I think we're to get some heads turned, hopefully. Sell some merch.
Yeah, we always got to sell the merch, right? It's part of the deal. Yeah, right on. So if people are hearing about you for the first time on this show, what's the best way to find out what you're up to? I mean, obviously, like live shows aren't happening at the moment, but presumably they will at some point, and people want to hear the record. What's the best option there?
We're on all the streaming platforms. We're on everything. If you really like it, go buy it on Bandcamp. That's wonderful. And we post regular updates on Instagram. You can find out anything that we're doing and more at any given time on Instagram. And the other thing though that Cowbo Morsche has started to kind of move out into is producing for other artists.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So, we've actually got a couple projects in the work. I won't name names just yet, but for other people where we're actually making the instrumentals for them. Like either we have one that's a singer-songwriter, and so they'll come to us with chords and a melody, and we'll kind of do the backing track for them. And then there's another rapper, and it's a lot less direct, I suppose. He kind of says a vibe, states a few influencers that he'd want, and we kind of work out something that fits what he wants. So we're offering that to anybody as well, which is an interesting way of, I think, expanding both our audience and the kind of, well, our palette as well, because it forces us to do things that I don't think we would otherwise do, which is is cool.
Well, you get your chops up, right? Because you gotta go into unfamiliar territory.
Yeah,
cool. And so the record's on Spotify, all those things, Bandcamp as well.
Yeah.
And do you have any physical copies of this one, or is that
pandemic? Not just yet. No. I mean, it came out already during COVID, so we thought that. I mean, you kind of need to have a live show for physical copies to be viable. Otherwise, you're selling to family and friends. Which cool. I guess you can make money off your family and friends, but I didn't. Probably once we start touring, we're definitely going to get this newer one burned out to a CD. I don't know about the last one yet. We'll see what people think of those songs live. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.